Morning again. I'm Laverne Lewis, TriMet's board president, and welcome to the TriMet Board of Directors meeting for April 23rd, 2025. We are gathered again at our awesome home at One Main Place in our TriMet boardroom for our April 2025 board meeting. We are also live streaming the meeting on YouTube. Director Flowers did have a other business to attend to, so he will be not present with us. However, we do have our 6 board members present to consider all resolutions for today. Thank you again for being with us this morning. We will begin with our public forum for those who are present and have signed up to testify. Members of the public who wish to provide testimony and could not be here may join us virtually after we have heard from those who are present and have signed up. For those offering testimony, please direct your comments to TriMet and our transit-related services as opposed to other topics. We also ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and you will note that there is a time indicator to help you comply, and we ask that you respect the time, especially for those that are following you. If you're unable to limit your comments to the 3 minutes, you may provide additional comments in writing. TriMet staff is able to address any emails that you forward to us, the board, as well. Also, please note that we do greatly appreciate the time that you take to come and testify to the board. If you ask a question, have information, are raising an issue, it is noted for the record. The board will not be responding. The general manager will have staff respond to you during a break or meet with you to follow up. So we gladly welcome you. Now we will call up to the testimony table 2 at a time, and we do have a public forum this morning from Daniel Lumbert. Daniel, could you come? There you are. Could you come forward? Thank you. You may proceed when you're ready, and then do turn on your mic. Okay, it's right in front. Perfect. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, President Lewis, board, Sam, and guests. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you again today. As I am back again, I want to thank you for your willingness to ask hard questions. At our last meeting, there was a disagreement as to what I was saying, and I felt like the board was really willing to step up and ask some questions and not just accept. So I appreciate that. There was also a mention of me actually meeting with TriMet officials to look at my plan for the safety response team. That didn't happen. Now, I'm not here to point fingers. What I'm here to do is to say that I think it reflects the complexity of the situation and how much work is getting done and things get slipped through the cracks. So that brings me to something else. Last time we talked about the safety response team's impact on the system, a lot of touch points with the citizens, a really great thing. But touch points don't always tell you everything. The CSOs, the CSS, road supervisors, they can all do this too. What does our safety response team do differently? And that's the important part. Not to mention, how are they being treated? The people that work on the safety response team care. They really do. I've been there. I've done that. I'm talking to them. In fact, I was just talking to them while you guys were talking. It was built for visibility and presence, but they want help. They want help to actually help. PTAT teams are made of EMTs, behavioral health clinicians, and peer mentors with lived experience. Very similar to what we got, except for just more capable. Before coming to PSU to study conflict resolution and urban planning, I taught geostrategic security to national and regional leaders in Hawaii. People who oversee complex systems, just like the one we're doing here. I've seen what works and what fails when systems are under pressure. And I'm here because I believe this board has a real opportunity to evaluate what's failing here. If we keep designing systems around infrastructure like objects, spaces, rails, we will always treat people as the problem. But when we build safety around human wellness, we start asking better questions and finding better answers. Thank you again for your time. I do want to point out that the crime numbers are not quite as apparent as they look, because I've done the statistical analysis of this from 2015. The reduction in numbers of criminal behavior is because of the reduction in the number of people on the system. The actual violence has gotten worse. It's gotten worse by a mean and a median, okay? So that's kind of a smoke and mirror thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Thank you. Any others? No? Okay, with no other members from the public signed up at this time, are there any virtual? Okay. At this time, we will go ahead and close the public forum. We'll now proceed to the board report section of our business meeting. I will begin with asking Director Graham to present a report on the recent meeting of the Committee on Accessible Transportation, also known as CAT.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It was a great meeting. So the chair, Jan Campbell, opened it and invited people to share their experiences of Transit Day. And there were some really great stories that everyone shared, and really talking about the importance of advocacy for older adults and people with disabilities, making their voices heard for funding. And it is so important for the funding that TriMet receives and to make sure that the system is accessible. And so I really appreciate CAT members taking that time and sharing their stories and their lived experiences so that people know how important this funding is to maintain the accessibility of the system. We also got an update from Pat Williams, our Director of Safety and Security, talking about some of the recent initiatives, including the blue light phones, which have been really well received. CAT requested an audible alert system for the blue light phones, but apparently the infrastructure doesn't lend itself to that functionality yet. I don't know if that's something that could be added in the future, but we know that there's a lot more phones that will be added to the system coming up, and so I think that accessibility conversation is an important one to continue to pursue. We also talked about the elevator access control project and adding the functionality to accept printed bus tickets with a new QR code there. And Director Flowers and I also just recently had a tour of the operating system of TriMet, and I was so impressed by the ways that TriMet is really taking a proactive stance towards safety and security, and especially on the elevators. So well done, and it's pretty amazing to see all of that work. And also all the dedication and coordination between staff and the CAT and everyone here, and that focus. And then we got an update from the LIFT subcommittee that was talking about Transit Driver Appreciation Day, next on demand service in Gresham, and some of the bus wraps and things that people are doing to encourage accessibility and visibility on the system. And the 82nd Community Advisory Committee co-chair, Franklin Uchida, shared that the focus for the current CAT efforts is focused on business access and transit lines, but there are a number of concerns from CAT committee members about the time it takes for people with mobility impairments to cross large intersections. So I know that we're at a certain level of design with the 82nd project, but that would be something to continue to pay attention to as that goes on. And then TriMet staff provided a number of updates, including a proposal for the 2025 Oregon Public Transportation Conference on best practices. And then Eileen shared about the APTA Mobility Conference update and TriMet representation on several panels. And then we went through an overview of the business plan for TriMet that we are all very familiar with. So I really just appreciate the staff and the CAT committee as a whole and their intention and focus on the areas and especially the advocacy for TriMet funding that continues to make the system accessible. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Are there any questions for Director Graham on the Committee on Accessible Transportation? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We'll now ask Director Kellogg to present a report from the recent Crash Advisory Committee meeting. Director Kellogg.
Thank you, President Lewis. Yes, we met on April 14th. I want to first give kudos to Kitty Kong, who's the staff contact. Does a great job of getting us the materials in advance to review. We've got a new chair, Jason Little, who's done a great job organizing the members. This meeting, I think we did 6, maybe 7 crashes, and as a former member, you're familiar with some of the graphic nature of some of those. And just as a review, you know, we're looking at these crashes to figure out what can we do as an organization better to either limit or eliminate either trouble spots or other sort of recurring behaviors. And unfortunately, a lot of what I've seen recently are people getting into our right-of-way and intentionally going into our vehicles. And there's only so much we can do about that. One of the things that we are doing, though, which is pretty extraordinary, is offering counseling services to our employees who are affected in these incidents, because, you know, it's tough enough to be out there day to day operating one of these vehicles, but to have someone commit suicide under your vehicle, you know, it's really rough. But we're working on figuring out ways to, you know, prevent access restrictions, whether it's on our platforms and other places, and so hoping to minimize that damage in the future.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. Are there any questions for Director Kellogg for the Crash Committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Great report. Unfortunately, it's not a subject that brings good news, but I'm glad to hear that you're increasing the wellness for those who drive the vehicles, our operators. Now I'll ask Director Kim to provide a report on this morning's Tax Supervising and Conservation Committee, also known as TSCC's hearing. Director Kim?
Thank you, President Lewis. We had a very successful TSCC hearing this morning. I applaud our finance team as well as the entire executive staff who supported the effort. So thank you. And it was successful in a very straightforward sense that our budget 2025-26 has been approved. So thank you all.
Very short report. But it was an awesome meeting. Thank you. At this time now, we'll turn to our general manager for his monthly report.
Thanks, President Lewis and board. Just want to thank the staff for being here as well, and the public. Thank you for being here. First, our public spokesperson that came up initially and had a conversation, Daniel Lambert, just want to let him know that staff will be reaching out to him to have a conversation with him. Also, Director Graham, thank you for that update with Kat, and I had a really good conversation with Jan on Transit Day. I was down in Salem with her and everyone else, and just wanted to thank Anessa and Eileen for coordinating that and making sure that that takes place. In my report this morning, we're going to talk about a couple things. One is TriMet's adjusted service plans for bus lines 17 and 96. We'll talk about ridership from last month. We will receive a monthly operations analysis, and I'll give also a update on safety and security. And then we'll update you on the transit funding included in the proposed 2025 Oregon Transportation Package, just to give you a little bit of information there, and then share with you a little bit on the work on the 82nd Avenue Policy and Budget Committee. So first off, I want to provide some clarity to the board and the public around the delay of the proposed updates to the bus line 17, Holgate Broadway, and also the bus line 96, Tualatin I-5. While doing outreach around these proposals, we heard from many riders regarding outreach, and some expressed concerns that the changes would result in longer travel times and further distances to reach stops. Current boardings on the line 96 are at 35% of pre-pandemic levels, and then the current boardings on the northeast corridor of line 17 are slightly higher. They're at 36% of pre-pandemic levels. And those numbers are significantly lower than our average bus ridership, which has recovered to about 70 or 75% of pre-pandemic levels. And those percentages, they really fluctuate as we move forward. So if we see a significant increase in ridership in the next 12 months to about 50 or 51% of pre-pandemic level, we will permanently defer the route changes we have proposed for those lines. So we're gonna take it out for 12 months. We're gonna take a look at it on both the 17 and the 96. We also are going to market those lines as well. I've talked with the public affairs team, and we're gonna see if the riders come back to those lines before making a final decision on that. So we will continue to watch and monitor those lines for the next 12 months. Our scheduling staff must start billing the bus lines starting in March of next year for service in the second half of the year. So I will come back to the board and to the group here and probably give quarterly updates on both of those lines so that you'll know where we're going on that. Very exciting as we turn to ridership. TriMet provided more than 5.4 million trips in March. That comes out to about 1.2 million trips each week. And we saw gains of ridership across all of our fixed route modes. The weekly bus ridership was up 2.5% from March of last year. Max was up 4.4% from that same period. And also, I'm glad to report that West ridership increased 5.7% over last year. One of the things that I'll tell you, we've had some protests in town, which kind of spiked our ridership a little bit on certain days, but very excited about that, just to let you know. No. So now I'll bring up Director of Transit Systems and Support Services, Les Spittler, to brief us on the monthly operations analysis. So Les, I'll turn it up with you.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Good morning, President Lewis, members of the board. We're here to present the monthly operations analysis for February of 2025. Let's start with ridership. February system ridership was down about 6% over February 24. It's noteworthy that February 24 was a leap year, so it had one extra weekday. The weekday average for February 25 was about 190,000, so that's 4% of the monthly total. The remainder of the decline can be attributed to the winter storm that happened over Valentine's Day week. There were some school closures that gave students a couple days off. Our weather experts and other transportation partners discouraged unnecessary travel, and it seems like a lot of people heeded that advice. We also looked at traffic on major highways, and that was down 15% for the month of February. So we fared better than vehicle highway traffic. Moving on to bus. Boarding rides per revenue hour is down slightly compared to February 24, mostly again due to the winter weather that happened over Valentine's Day week. On-time performance was higher compared to February 24 and above target. Moving on to Max. On-time performance fell slightly, mostly due to the winter weather. Mean distance between failure is below target but higher than February 24. This is a combination of the older Type 1s still being in service and the newer Type 6s experiencing some burn-in type failures, some bugs. This is very common with new rail fleets, and so that is also contributing to a lower MDBF. Also, cold weather does impact our MAX train reliability. Hot weather and cold weather seem to affect those trains. Everything else looks good. Moving on to accessible transportation program. Everything looks really good here. Preventable collisions spiked a little bit, mostly due to the winter weather, and all the other metrics look pretty good. On to Wes. Wes is doing great. You heard the increase in ridership. People seem to be riding Wes a lot more, and that's really good to see. Okay, this is the last sheet of the analysis. It's the one-stop shop for all of your key performance data for all of our modes. Each quadrant represents its own mode, and we have a rolling 12 months of information there. That concludes my presentation today.
Thanks, Director. Next up, I have Director of Security and Emergency Management, Pat Williams, and he's here with the month's safety and security update.
Thank you, General Manager Sue, and good morning, Board President and board members. Thanks for this opportunity to come before you. First slide, please. So if we're looking at fare and code enforcement on the system from January through March, we're seeing a continual uptick now. We're back up with not only warnings and citations, mass transit citations, which are fare-related, and also our uniform, Oregon uniform citations, which are really conduct-related. So I'm happy to see that up. Next slide, please. Next is reports of smoke and fumes on buses only, and we're also seeing a downward trend with that. Sometimes you see spikes when you see weather-related issues, and so people try and get on the system to smoke, and so I'm happy to say that we're seeing a reduction in that. We're also focusing on hot spots to try and help reduce this. Next slide, please. Next is report of smoke and fumes on the rail system, and also that's holding pretty consistent. A slight uptick from February, but not a major uptick. And again, these are areas where we really focus on hot spots to try and remove people that do get on the system. Next slide, please. Next is our safety response team, the top 5 activities. So education, that still holds as our number 1. Contact with welfare checks, wayfinding, and resource referrals, and passenger assist. So if you look at that, we're making contact with a lot of people. Next slide, please. Sorry, Felicia. And then the total number of contacts, which is, I'm happy to say, is back up again to over 11,000 and continues to grow as we expand our capabilities. And I think that's it. If there's any questions.
We'll follow up in the end, Pat, so
Okay.
just stay tuned here for just a moment. Now I want to turn to the work in Salem. Just want to thank our government affairs team and all of our staff that's been participating. I've been down there on 3 different trips here over the last couple of weeks. I've met with 15 different legislators regarding our continuation of increasing the amount of state funding we receive from the State Transportation Improvement Fund program. Just yesterday, I was down at the Capitol with several of our fellow transit leaders, both Rogue Valley out of Medford, Lane Transit out of Eugene, Salem out of, Chariots out of Salem, and us. Between those 4 agencies, we represent 90% of Oregon State ridership that's here. So we were able to meet with co-chairs of the Joint Transportation Committees, both Senator Gershik, and also have conversations with the governor's office and also the speaker's office. And we met also with the Senate President office to help them really understand what's at stake for the state, and also what's at stake for TriMet, and what's needed from the transportation package. The framework that proposes an increase of the employee payroll tax by 0.08%, we basically told them that we needed additional revenues from that. And while the increase would bring additional operating revenues to TriMet, it's only 1/5 of increase that the Oregon Transit Association and also TriMet been asking and seeking from on this package. What we put forward to the legislative body, that TriMet needs at least a minimum of a 0.36 by 2032. And we asked as an entire group of a 0.4 from the state. I have been joined in advocacy by quite a few people, members on TriMet's Committee of Accessible Transportation, as what was brought up, all of the general managers of the top 4 agencies from around the state, and also community groups. Different groups have shown up to advocate for more transit funding as part of the Oregon Transit Association lobby. And there's been even more advocacy that's ahead. I'll be going back down on Monday to be part of JPAC, which is a Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation. And we're going to be advocating for a greater investment for the region and transit funding. So that's important. Without that larger increase, both TriMet and also our fellow transit agencies will need to make significant service cuts that could strand tens of thousands of Oregonians, and that's been our message from day one, without the transportation services that they rely on. So we will keep you posted on our visits, and each week we'll do an update and a communication piece just to let you know. We are expected to hear from the elected leaders on making a decision the early week, first week of May, of really finalizing their decision on what's going to take place. So I know that over the next week and a half to 2 weeks, we will be down there at least 2 times from TriMet's perspective. Transition into 82nd Avenue project. We're very excited about this project, and it's continuing to build momentum. Earlier, I chaired the first meeting of the project's Policy and Budget Committee. This committee will provide strategic guidance to the project as we work to match the scope with the budget. And it's been made up of leadership from each of the project's jurisdictions, Metro, PBOT, ODOT, Clackamas County, and it includes the chair of the project's Community Advisory Committee, or the CAC. And our team is really working with peers at those jurisdictions almost every day as we advance the design, and this includes our community affairs team. So Director Graham will definitely take in consideration what you were saying about wheelchairs being able to cross at different locations, and I know that's part of the conversation, but I'll make sure I take it back and have that conversation. We have a big outreach effort in progress right now, asking for community feedback about potential business access and transit lanes, also known as BAT lanes. And we got an open house that is ongoing right now, and there's an in-person open house and a CAG meeting tonight at PCC Southeast. So if you get an opportunity to get out there and stop by, please do that. When the Policy and Budget Committee meets in early June, we'll hear about how those BAT lanes could affect 82nd Avenue and what the community really thinks to take that feedback. So we'll meet again later that month, and I'll provide recommendations about the extent of those BAT lanes for the project. Our meetings will continue through a less frequent throughout the design phase, and of course, I'll keep you updated with as the design takes shape and we move forward. So with that, President Lewis, that concludes my report for this morning.
Thank you, General Manager DeSue. Does any of the board members have questions, follow-up? Okay. All right, Director Frisbee.
Thank you. I just want to, I know a lot of my fellow board members and a lot of folks across the region have been calling down in Salem to emphasize how important this is. And I just want to applaud everyone for doing this and coming together. And big kudos to the GR team who's working really hard. And this is crunch time for us. So thanks for the report, Sam, and thanks. I know we've all been doing a lot, so thank you.
That it? Oh,
No, I just want to say again, thanks to the team and the preparation, and I feel that we're all united as we are down there having the conversations, and had a very, very good meeting with the co-chairs yesterday, and they both informed me personally that if it was up to them, that we would have everything we need but there's many other people that sits on the legislation that needs to vote for this. So we're going to continue to tell our story, and we need as much advocacy as possible as we move forward.
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager, for that report. The work is still ongoing, and our financial needs are great, but we will prevail. Now let us turn to today's consent agenda. The items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, our consent agenda includes approving the minutes from our last meeting of March 26, 2025, and resolution number 250417, authorizing the modification of a contract for construction management services with Shield Oblis Jensen for the Red Line Extension and Reliability Improvement projects. Does any director wish to have either of these items removed? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the two items contained on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move to the resolutions on our regular agenda. We will now consider Resolution 250418, authorizing modification of the contract for construction manager general contractor services with Stacy Whitback for the Max Station Rehabilitation Project. General Manager, do you have comments on this resolution for us?
So President Lewis, members of the board, this resolution addresses major improvements for Northeast 82nd Avenue, Max Station. Just last week, crews began setting up for a major project to renovate the station, which is one of the oldest and most heavily used in our Max system. The improvements will bring it up to a state of good repair and ensure it meets TriMet's current standards for safety, security, and aesthetics. Let me bring up Principal Project Manager for Engineering and Construction, Robert Vance.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou, and good morning, President Lewis and members of the board. I'll be presenting a little information about this project and what some of the goals are and the progress that we've made to date. Next slide, please. As it was mentioned, the 82nd is one of the original Blue Line stations built in the 1980s, and it is in need of repair. It's located on Northeast 82nd Avenue and adjacent to the I-84 Banfield Freeway, which does present some challenges for construction. But we do have a plan to bring the station back to a state of good repair. And shown on the slide here is a picture of East 122nd Blue Line Station that was renovated back in 2018. So the 82nd station will have a similar look and feel in terms of amenities. Next slide, please. Here's some images of the station today. It is a grade-separated station, so access is from the bridge above the Max line and the freeway using stairs or an elevator. So the stairs are, and all the concrete surfaces are in need of rehabilitation. There's a lack of weather protection. There's just one shelter today, and the plan is to add a second shelter. And just a lot of the elements have been, are at the end of their useful life and need to be replaced. Next slide, please. So this is just a rendering of the station, what some of the improvements are. So the work will include refurbishing the platform surfaces and the stairway, replacing the platform edge tactile surfaces, upgrading the platform shelter roofs with stainless steel, adding a second shelter, and upgrading the lighting, CCTV cameras, railings, and passenger information systems. So back in December, the TriMet board authorized a contract with Stacy Whitbeck for construction management, general contractor services. And since then, we've modified the contract to purchase some long lead items and to begin some early work activities. Those are ongoing right now. So one of the early work activities is to build a temporary platform which will allow the station to remain in service during the major construction activities. And so now we're requesting a contract modification to complete the construction. And just showing a timeline here, as I mentioned, right now in April and May, the contractor is constructing this temporary platform. In June 8th and 9th, there'll be a switchover, a temporary closure of the station to switch from the existing platform to the temporary platform. And then in June through December, the existing platform will be rehabilitated with the goal of reopening in December 2025. And then early 2026, the contract will be completing punch list items and closing out the project. And that's all the information I have to share right now.
Give me one sec, Eric, but just remain.
Sure.
Thank you, Robert, on that. The board, the resolution authorizes a contract modification for $4.7 million plus a change order allowance of $526,000. And this brings the total contract amount to $6.2 million. The modification amount is included in the Engineering and Construction Division FY 2025 budget and proposed FY 2026 budget. And I recommend your approval.
Okay. Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250418?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment, questions before we vote? Director Kellogg?
Thank you, President Lewis. Mr. Vance, if I remember correctly, this part of the safety improvements here are going to be access control?
Access control is a separate project, but we are coordinating with that project as well.
Okay. Do you have familiarity with what those, I mean, I'm looking at the rendering and wondering where that's going to be and how it's going to work.
I have a little familiarity, but I wonder if someone else maybe should.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. There are two projects that are being coordinated with that will impact access control. The one that's will be the soonest is an expansion of our elevator access control pilot, where a card reader will be installed at the 82nd elevator that will allow only people who have a valid fare to actually access the elevator. I think you've been tracking the success of the pilot at 42nd. We've identified 4 elevators at grade foot separated stations, including 82nd. We don't have a specific schedule, but we have budgeted to advance that project in next year, and we're hopeful it won't take us much more than a year to get that rolled out at 82nd, 60th, and Bybee. The other, if I can mention, is like a lot of agencies, looking hard at just globally the system and access control, and looking at the concept of selectively or globally using fare gates. Now, we have a system that's quite different from many systems. We have a lot of what's called open system or non-grade separated platforms, but we do have conditions where we do have kind of natural bottlenecks like grade separation and other locations where we may be able to roll out. We do have funding to continue project development of a fare gate access control project, and we are coordinating with the 82nd Transit project internally to make sure that if we are in a position to move forward with fare gates at 82nd, there'll be space allocated for that as part of their design. So again, I don't have a specific schedule for the rollout of that. Fare gates are very complex, and with our environment, we need to be really, really careful, both in terms of the product we select, but also how we potentially protect that product from the weather and other things. But those are budgeted for project development next year and are definitely a focus of the safety and security effort, and we are coordinating the 82nd project to not preclude and to facilitate those in the future.
Okay. I appreciate that. 2 aspects on it. One, I think it's important for future riders to know, you're going to need to present your fare way up here and not on the train. And then second, as part of a marketing campaign or public interest campaign, to say, look, we're doing more to increase safety and security. And I know it's not particularly germane to what you're presenting here today, but I do want to make that point.
Agreed,
Appreciate it.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Kellogg. I was going to ask the same question on the fare gates. Thank you. Director Frisbee?
I was going to ask the same question
Oh.
on the elevator access control.
Okay. And
Okay. Okay.
Director Way?
Thanks. Just my question was, I think the current station has existing like artwork, right? Murals, right? Okay. I'm like, I think it does. So can you talk a little bit about retaining some of the beautiful murals? I just think it's just such an amazing thing to, whether you're driving or you're on that station to kind of know that there's a lot of, thought behind making TriMet more inclusive, welcoming through just the art and the artists that we utilize for murals and things like that. So, just
Well, the project does include, protecting that mural during construction, for sure. And then toward the end of construction, the mural can be touched up and then protected with like an anti-graffiti coating. So that's part of the plan as well.
great. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for General Manager or the two gentlemen? All right. It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? An aye myself. Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to Resolution 3, we will now consider Resolution 250419, authorizing a contract for construction manager, general contractor services with Just Bucket Excavating Company for the Beaverton and Oregon City Transit Centers project. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis and members of the board. TriMet received several federal awards back in 2022 for improvements both in Beaverton and also in Oregon City Transit Centers. And those federal funds will be matched with STIF and also TriMet general funds to deliver significant upgrades at both locations, which will benefit riders and also our employees. I'm going to bring in our Senior Project Manager for Engineering and Construction, Mike Corrente, to really show us the exciting plans for those well-used transit centers. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry I had to rush up here. You're ready. Thank you, President Lewis and the board. My name is Michael Corrente. I am the Senior Project Manager and the lead for our Layovers and Transit Centers program, which is essentially a suite of projects that help support our bus operations. So these two projects are a part of that program. Just so that we're on the same page, on the left is an aerial image of the Beaverton Transit Center, and on the right is the Oregon City Transit Center. Those are the two I'll be talking about. Although we have similar elements for both projects, they're very different in how they operate, at least how the outcome will be. So on the left, you can see Beaverton Transit Center again with Wes on the left side of the image, and on the right is the Max Blue Line. And then we have in the center what we call kind of the island, and then the pavilion in the middle, which is sort of an element of distinction that we call. So it's very prominent. It's the main thing that you see at Beaverton. And then on the right is Oregon City Transit Center, which you can see Main Street is to the bottom of the image, and on the top of the image is 99. And then our transit operates in sort of between those two streets. So some of the highlights of these projects, and please forgive me if I get into the detail, just tell me to move on because there's a lot going on here. There's just a lot that we have going. So some of the highlights are new shelters, high-capacity shelters. Right now we have 2 common stops at Beaverton, so we're going to replace those shelters with larger, newer shelters. And it is related to the program that we have going on for a different group, but it's same. We also have additional layover space that will accommodate 40-foot buses and 60-foot buses. We have 2 chargers going in for electric charging. That could be for line 20 to come in and charge, and also hopefully support any work that relates to TV Highway. And then we had to get a little creative because part of this project too is to increase our break room, which we call OLF, which is our operator layover facility. It's kind of our technical term, but it's basically a break room for our operators. And we are switching sort of the location of the existing bike barn with the crew room. So we're going to expand that footprint. And I've got a slide here later that'll show that a little bit better. And so this is basically the same information on this slide, but just sort of the footprint on a plan view of where these things are going and sort of the modifications that we're making to the sidewalk and curb. And then again, the bike barn is switching sort of uses with the crew room building. Oh, thank you. This is the floor plan of the new crew room space. You can see it's 1,280 square feet roughly. Right now we have about 600 square feet, so we're increasing that by a lot, by at least twice. We have more restrooms in here, all user restrooms up to 6, and then we have a larger break room. And then we also are adding a wellness room as well. This is just a quick rendering just to kind of see the sort of the CMU block, which is related to a pattern that we've used before at Cleveland and also at Fairplex. We're kind of continuing that theme. This building is meant to sort of be in the backdrop. We're putting it under the existing roof because as I mentioned earlier, that pavilion is more the distinctive element of the site. So we don't want to take away from that. It's more of a landmark. So this building is kind of in the background a little bit. Oregon City, again, similar types of things that we're doing, but obviously a different site, and our operations will be different here. So when we're done with this, we'll have 6 layover positions sort of behind Main Street there to the west. We'll have a new break room building and bus stop. We'll have an expanded partner bus stop for any other agencies that come in and use our transit center. We'll keep our bus parking in front of KFC, and then we'll be adding for northbound service bus stop and shelter along Main Street. Here again is just a plan view of kind of the extent of what we're going to be working on. One thing that's really nice too about this project for Main Street and working with the city is to make these curb cut adjustments and bring in new sidewalks, new ADA ramps, and update all of that for our customers to get to our service. And that will mainly take place right in front of the new building here off of Main Street, so we'll have a common drop-off and pickup there. And this, again, is a floor plan of our building, going from about 200 square feet to 1,400 square feet. Right now, that building that we have is not really used. We had an old concession area that's not used. So right now, they basically have a room with a couple of bathrooms. So we're really updating this and accommodating the number of operators that we have using this transit center. Same sort of formula, new restrooms, wellness room, larger break room, and then we have other elements that, IT and mechanical. This is a conceptual rendering of that. One thing that's unique about building in downtown Oregon City is you have to have at least a 25-foot height element on your building, which is where you see on the left of the image. We've added that, which is great because we can hide our mechanical up there, so we can use it. But this will sort of become that distinctive element for the transit center. It'll be and it blends in with some of the architectural features that you see on other buildings on Main Street as well. And our schedule, right now we're in 60% design. We're headed towards 90 in about June. We hope to have 100% by September. Come back to the board, get approval for a total construction price, and then start construction October. One may slide a little bit than the other, just depending, but right now, with this resolution, bringing on our CMGC to help us get that schedule lined up and then get started hopefully in October. I just want to take a pause here. This is a slide that has another layer of work that we get to do sometimes in working with people outside of our group and our little silo sometimes. Amy Parker, who is at PSU, she's a coordinator of with the Orientation Mobility Program. And then also Eileen Turvey, which I know is here, which is an incredible person and support for our transit center projects. We basically developed a study, and we have students coming in and members of the CAT and also adults coming in to help us find what are some of the challenges that they face, low vision or blind, or using mobility devices. So the image on the left shows a Braille map that was produced. We hope to have those for a lot of the transit centers and available at the Jane Campbell Mobility Center. And on the right, this student is using the Falcon. As he approached it, was able to find it. So they were put in a position in the transit center at Beaverton and said, okay, you have to find where this thing is. And so getting that feedback and seeing where we might find sort of low dollar but high value things that we can incorporate. And this is taking lessons learned from this, but also the vision, our rail platforms, anything in our sort of toolbox that we have. And that's it. Thank you.
Mike, thanks for the presentation. If you could just stand by, the board has questions. Board, this resolution requests board's approval to award the CMGC contract to Just Bucket Excavating. The firm was selected through a competitive RFP process. The resolution requests authorization of $193,000 for pre-construction services. As with the previous resolution, the amount is included in the Engineering and Construction Division current year and proposed FY26 budgets. TriMet will work with Just Bucket to develop a total contract price that aligns with the construction budget. Your approval is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250419?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? And thank you, Michael. Don't go away. Director Kim?
Thank you. I had an ancillary question. Do we currently, or will we officially or unofficially provide access to RLF to our partner agencies who make stops at the two transit centers?
We do currently at some, and we do actually at Oregon City now. They actually pull up in front of our crew room building, so we're just going to move them to the side and actually give them more room in case they expand or use larger buses in the future. I kind of failed to mention that both of these transit centers have not been touched for about 20, 30 years. So hopefully these updates will then push us forward for another 20, 30 years. So that's what accommodate us and any of the other agencies that we might partner with.
So then practically, would the operator of those agencies, our partner agencies, have access cards or similar keys to enter into our OLF, newly built OLF in 2026?
They can. We have talked about that with our service planning team, so they're still working on that, what that means or how that would work. A little bit outside of my scope, but yes. So we do have card readers on there, so it could be controlled, badge access.
Thank you, Director Kim. Director Graham?
Thank you. I had two questions. One, just looking at the comparison of the criteria for both companies. And for the J.E. Dunn Construction Company, there was a 20 points on the construction management fee. Was that because they waived it? Or I was just curious as to why there was a 20 points there and 9.67 on the others.
So that's with pricing. That is an equation that basically comes into factor. If you're lower, you automatically get those points, those total 20 points. And then there's an equation that works. I think Jeff can speak more to that, but how that works. But that's why you've got the swing there in the points.
Okay. My other question is, I'm just thinking about the future in electrification. Is there charging infrastructure that's going into some of these updates?
Beaverton will have 2 chargers.
Okay.
And then we will, hopefully, as budget goes, we'll see, but we hope to accommodate 4 more, at least the infrastructure, the conduit to get to 4 more to be included. That would support TB Highway if it goes electric.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I know it's really hard to go back and do that
Yes,
later.
agreed, and that's
great to lay the
exactly why
groundwork
we're
for the
trying to
future.
do that on the island and have Line 57 be able to loop in on and around the island to pick up those chargers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Graham. I do have a few questions. How many operators at any given time are using the facility there at Oregon City or Beaverton?
My understanding is, and looking, being out there and observing and from our service planning team, we probably have about 12 to 15. We could get up to that many. And you can imagine with Oregon City, 200 square feet, you don't have much room. There's basically
Right.
a microwave and a stool. Beaverton is small as well, so you get a couple of people in there and you start to get really crowded with the vending machines and the bottle station and everything else. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. And I know they gave the planning team a wish list of what they would like in the room. Can you share what's in the rooms? I mean, did they provide surveys? Were they part of the planning of what they needed?
Yes, we worked with the restroom committee, and that's
The
where
restroom committee?
And I know, and checking in with union as well, a union representative as well, but that's why we have the wellness room as a part of that.
Okay, so the wellness room was very, okay.
All user restrooms as well, that's why we have 3 at Beaverton, and then the two that we do have at Oregon City are all user restrooms, to accommodate that as well, so. That's sort of a result of that. There's the bottle fill station, which I believe was something.
Good, good.
Security as well. We will have more security cameras in the building, and before the operator steps out, we'll have a screen that will show all the camera views around the building. So just in case anything's happening, they'll be aware of that.
Excellent. Is it connected to the command center with safety?
will be,
It is,
yeah.
okay. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Director Frisbee?
Thank you for this presentation, and it's exciting to see these two pieces move forward. And I think I want to echo the sentiment you heard from my colleagues of, like, really glad we're able to provide a space for the operators to actually have a functional break rather than cramming 12 people into 200 square feet. So thank you. I had 2 questions. One is like a comment/question, and then one is a question. Really excited, the wayfinding approach and the partnership with CAT and the PSU program is just such a great example of actually bringing people in and using their lived experience and partnering with folks. So thank you for that. And I will put in a tiny plug as someone who has spent an embarrassing amount of time walking around transit centers trying to find the bike parking, that we make sure that that is also well signed. So we're not going to talk about how much time of my life has been spent doing that. And then my other question is, in the memo for this, it mentioned that Gateway was originally part of the project and got removed due to funding, which makes a lot of sense. And parts of Gateway got a little bit of a touch-up with Better Red, but is there a plan to do the whole piece, or is there a different approach? And if you're not the right person to ask that question, you can tell me to ask someone else.
No, I'm the one to ask.
Awesome.
It did get pulled out. We will be doing some improvements. We're working to see where the budget lands, if we could help maybe with the break room, at least something. But at this point, I'm unsure. We have a few other things for operations that we need to do, some curb realignments, possibly add in some space. So that may eat up what we have in the budget. But it's not off the table. I have been trying to work with FM to get an idea and sense of what it is maybe we could do and what that might mean to the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions from the board, comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time today as well. Okay, moving on to Resolution 4. Next, the board will consider Resolution 250420, authorizing a contract with Mass Electric Company for the Red Line Feeder, Breaker, and Station Control Cabinet Upgrade Project. Mouthful. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis. Members of the board, this resolution deals with TriMet's traction power substations. And for the purpose of this resolution and the next resolution, we'll refer to the traction power substations as the TPSS. The substations are vital to TriMet's max service. They take renewable electricity from the original power grid and convert it into 800 volts DC or direct current that makes the trains go. So I just kind of wanted to give you that picture there. And each TPSS has multiple components, including those that protect the light rail system from electrical overloads, There are 5 mainline TPSSs that supply power from the Max Red Line between Gateway Transit Center and Portland International Airport. So at 25 years old, they have reached the end of their useful life, and the original manufacturer no longer supports parts and services. Upgrading and modernizing these substations is essential to maintain safety and reliability along the Red Line. TriMet's invitation to bid resulted in 2 submissions, with Mass Electric submitting the lowest bid. Staff has recommended Mass Electric to be awarded a 3-year contract for the project in the amount of $1.5 million plus potential change orders up to $300,000 or 20% of the contract amount. The cost of upgrading and replacing these components is budgeted in the Maintenance of Way Department's annual capital budget and are included in TriMet's proposed FY26 budget. And I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250420?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Director Way?
Thank you. I have a question on this, because I'm always curious. I know that we always have extreme weather, now just ever more present with climate change and extreme heat, 3-digit numbers in the summer, and then some of the winter weather that we've been having. And so I'm just curious with this particular project, if we're looking into sort of the impacts and effects of those different weather changes and whether or not this will help our systems run better. I just know that just from the news and also from some of the reports we get. Whenever we get, really, really intense weather, our trains have to halt or shut down.
So we have a separate project that we're looking at resiliency and making sure that the trains operate in both the heat just as well as the cold. And that's something that we're continuously looking at. We've had some innovation that's occurred with our overhead catenary system that we're looking at as well. But this is truly just upgrading and replacing those components for kind of life expectancy. And what we could do is we could have David come up, if you're out here, maybe to give us a little bit of some of the things that you're doing on the resiliency level.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Excellent. So we are doing some things on the OCS side for climate resiliency. We're doing a pilot program where we are changing the type of counterweights that our system uses. Traditionally, we just used weight stacks which hang off of poles, and we're exchanging those to Tensor X springs. And so those allow like roughly double the take and give that those counterweights do. So that's something that we are doing specifically for climate. If it gets really hot or really cold, the upgrades we're doing to this end-of-life replacement will be somewhat helpful. So this does somewhat guard, but it's just like Sam said, this is mainly just taking system components that are just old and worn out, like in a vehicle, the transmission needs to be serviced. That's somewhat what we're doing here.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. And yeah, great that we're, again, thinking about all the effects of climate change and how we're trying to be more resilient when, when we have extreme weather.
And Director Wade, just one quick point. And so the original manufacturer currently no longer supports the parts of the system that we have in place. So we're cannibalizing to make this work.
Good point.
Thank you, General Manager, and thank you, David, for coming up. Any other questions, comments from board members? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, motion carries. Okay. Our next resolution before the board is resolution number 250421, authorizing a contract with Liberty Electrical Incorporated for the West Side Blue Line station alarm panel and AC protection relay upgrade project. Sounds like you're the man again, David. General Manager, do you have any comments
Thanks,
at this
President
time?
Lewis, members of the board. This resolution is also related to our traction power substations. There are 20 mainline TPSS supplying propulsion power for our MAX trains on the west side. So east side that we just talked about is on the west side. At 30 years old, they've reached their end of useful life, and additional replacement parts and repair services are no longer offered by the original equipment manufacturer. So our maintenance of way team has determined that upgrading and modernizing components of the TPSS is essential to maintain safety and reliability along the MAX Blue Line. So TriMet issued an invitation to bid. Liberty Electric, Inc. submitted the lowest bid. It was found to be fair and reasonable in comparison with our TriMet independent cost estimate. Therefore, staff recommends the award for the 3-year contract to Liberty for $2.7 million. The amount includes 15% for possible change orders. Costs are budgeted in the maintenance of way annual capital budget and are included in TriMet's proposed FY 2025 budget. Your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250421?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Thank you. Does anyone wish to comment, ask questions before we vote? Oh, seeing and hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, David. Okay. We'll move now to Resolution 6, Resolution number 250422, authorizing a contract with Portland Patrol, Inc. to provide revenue collection services. General Manager, do you have any comments at this time on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis, members of the board. TriMet has 167 of our new fare vending machines that hold cash from purchases of hop cards. TriMet's money room personnel assigned our current revenue collection contractor a daily service schedule for machines. The contractor service between 15 and 20 machines daily. It takes 2 people, about 8 hours to complete the work. In addition to collecting cash from the hop card machines, the contractor collects mobile vaults containing fare revenue from our 3 bus operation facilities, as well as paper currency from our customer support center in downtown Portland. The current contract will expire in November. TriMet used a competitive request for proposal process to select a new contractor. Portland Patrol, Inc. was the highest scoring firm and represented the best overall value to TriMet. Their proposal was found to be fair and reasonable and came in under TriMet's independent cost estimate. Portland Patrol, Inc. proposed annual price is also within the proposed FY 2026 budget for the Finance and Administrative Service Division. The proposed contract is for a 5-year term, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250422?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment, ask questions before we vote? Director Kellogg.
Yeah, following Director Graham's model of astute observations in the scoring chart, an oddity appears to me that Allied Universal is the existing contractor on this work, and yet they scored lower on the understanding of the work of the replacement contractor. Can someone help me understand that?
We're going to bring in
Oh.
Jeff, just as well as Greg below, if Greg's out.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. That's a good question. Internally, we've asked the same exact question and thought about that deeply. I didn't sit on the SEC, so I can't tell you exactly what that review process was like, but I think from my perspective as a procurement director, this is a procurement working exactly like it's supposed to, right? We don't want to establish a habit of handing contracts back to those people who are already doing that work. I think what we see here, what we hope we're seeing here, is that we saw a contractor who stepped up and said, I have a better idea, I have a better approach, I have a better team, I have a better company, and I'm gonna make you a better offer. It's hard, I think, for those kinds of competitors to win in these circumstances, and yet, lo and behold, that's exactly how it came out. I can't speak to the specifics of what we have a committee of people who evaluate all these proposals. I don't see any evidence of bias here. What I see is the evidence of a procurement process working exactly like it's supposed to. We had a service, it's been performed for a number of years, we resolicited that service, and somebody came to the table with a better idea.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that answer, and I wasn't suggesting there was any sort of misbehavior, but having that understanding, especially in the context of the next resolution, helps make sense to, know that our procurement process is always being refreshed and that we're going with the best ideas. Yep. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Resolution 7. For our last resolution, the board will convene as the TriMet Contract Review Board, TCRB, to consider Resolution 0423, adopting updated TriMet Contract Review Board rules. As the board may recall, last month we received an advance copy of a one-page outline of the proposed changes to the TCRB rules, the proposed updated rules, and 3, the current rules that have been in effect since 2014. Because this is a significant amount of information, advance copies were provided to the board here, ample time to review. General Manager, do you have comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis and members of the board. The Oregon Public Contracting Code authorized the board to constitute itself as a TriMet Contract Review Board. In that role, the TCRB exempts certain contracts from the code's competitive bidding requirements. The board exercises its authority as a TCRB under TCRB rules it adopts by resolutions. The TCRB last amended its rules in 2014 in response to changes in the code. The Oregon legislature recently amended the code once again to raise certain dollar threshold applicable to all public agencies' procurements. TriMet procurement and legal staff determined the TCRB rules should be amended and reorganized to incorporate the latest changes, eliminate redundancies, and facilitate their use. The proposed and current rules were provided to the board for review last month and are attached and outlined in your packet as well. These changes provided TriMet staff with greater flexibility to procure goods and services and continue to protect the public interest and encourage full and open competition, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager. At this time, is there a motion to approve Resolution 250423?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment, ask questions before we vote?
Yeah, we're doing a presentation.
Okay.
President Lewis, I have a presentation. Maybe I can get to a lot of your questions.
Okay, please proceed.
If I could, I would invite Zach Cooper to join me here. Zach is the contracts manager. I may need to phone a friend at some point if you ask real hard questions. I also want to thank Les Spittler, who many of you know and who've sat in this chair before me. I am picking up this project from Les. And there was a lot of good work already in place. So Zach and I have worked on this along with Greg Steelman. So this has been a team effort here at TriMet. It's a big lift. This is a big document. It controls a lot of how staff operate procurement and how we interact with you as a board and as a TCRB. So group effort here, and many thanks to all the people who've contributed to this, namely Les and Greg. I'll walk you through a brief presentation. The F&A committee also already saw a version of this presentation, so you can go ahead and proceed to the first slide. Let me talk a little bit about what the TCRB rules are and what they're not. And I think it's good. There was a question raised yesterday from the board about how this related to the number of contracts that you see coming to you for approval. And it's an apt question because the answer is it doesn't. So the board has two separate ways that you control contracting. One through the TCRB rules and one through the delegation of authority that you offer to the general manager. So that delegation of authority is the board granting the general manager the authority to approve contracts, to approve us contracting with another agency for goods or services up to a certain amount. That threshold today is set at $1 million. The TCRB rules are separate from that. The TCRB rules are not about how you are authorizing contracts by dollar amount. They're really only limited to how the TCRB grants staff the authority to deviate from Oregon procurement law in certain and specific ways. And so that's what I'll pick up on this slide. Oregon law has a general concept that every good and service should be subject to competitive bidding, not proposals. So one of the things that a contract review board does is authorizes us through these rules to use processes other than bidding. So we might use an RFP, we might use a qualifications-based procurement, we might limit competition to some degree. All of that requires an exemption from standard process. So think about it that way. The TCRB rules are the collection of exemptions from standard process for procurement method, separate entirely from how you delegate to the general manager your authority to approve contracts. The TCRB or contract review boards generally are required to exempt non-bid procurements from bidding. So in order for us to issue an RFP, you have to approve that. The TCRB rules become the rules of the road for how we do that internally. It tells us what things we need to bring to you for approval before we solicit them and what other things we don't need to bring to you. You, as the TriMet Board of Directors, are the TriMet Contract Review Board. You could delegate that responsibility to another kind of assembly. You don't. It's common for local governments and special bodies to do what you are doing, which is to stand as the Contract Review Board. So that's what you do. You are exempting solicitations from the competitive bidding concept that is the core of Oregon procurement law. Next slide, please. You last adopted these rules in October of 2014. There's a note here that says that they're out of date with current practice, and I want to be careful here to say that we don't do anything outside of the rules that we currently have today. When I say that they're out of date with current practice is that we authorize a lot of things by sole source, and we bring things to you that really they're commonplace. We have other reasons for doing those things. They're not really sole sources. And what we are doing in this set of rules is modernizing our procurement rules, the TCRB rules, so that we are able to do fewer things documented as sole source and instead identify those things as alternative or innovative procurements. And so the current rules we have today induces a little more sole sourcing than we really do. Next slide, please. Again, mostly clerical. There's a lot of reorganization here. It mostly memorializes our current contracting practices. There's a couple of things in here that are new, and we talked about some of those things in the F&A, and I'll point them out, things that we haven't done, but that we think are interesting ideas that we're being encouraged to do or that we think might be good practice. We've included statutory exemptions that are already in Oregon law, meaning that there's certain kinds of purchases that aren't subject to the Oregon Procurement Code at all. We've made note of those here, and we've included several classes of common exemptions. And again, these are simply common exemptions from competitive low bidding. We still have procurement processes in place that identify those services. Next slide, please. So this memorializes these statutory exemptions. Some of these I'll just glance over, and then we'll talk about a couple more in depth. Law enforcement equipment, which we buy occasionally but rarely, grants that we would make to other organizations, real property, and a lot of these just make good sense, right? When you're buying a piece of real property, there's only one person to buy it from, right? So that is exempt completely from Oregon statute, and also contracts for debts, loans, and investments. And the note that I would make here is that although Oregon law exempts contracts for debts, loans, and investments completely from procurement law, we actually do solicit many of those things as a good best practice. So for example, we've recently been talking about contracts for potentially a bond underwriter. That is a loan type transaction, and we do publicly solicit that underwriter who we're going to work with on a loan because it's a best practice, because we want best value, because we want to get the best deal we can. It's exempt from the law. We solicit it anyway. Next slide, please. And if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. We talked about this a little bit in the F&A committee, and there was a desire for a little more information, so I provided for that. The Oregon law not only exempts purchases from Oregon correctional enterprises from the remainder of the procurement law, but it also requires that we consider Oregon correctional enterprises for any good that they produce before we go to the open market. We do that now, and we currently contract with OCE for two things. Vinyl slipcovers for LRV seats. Interestingly enough, I believe that we buy the vinyl, we provide them the vinyl, and what we really pay them for is the labor to construct those. And also sacrificial rail guards in front of LRVs, just an interesting thing that they're able to produce for us when we work with them on that. Next slide, please. It also exempts contracts with other governments. We contract with other governments all the time via intergovernmental agreements. We call them IGAs. Sometimes they take slightly different forms. We have those with pretty much every government in the metro area. Most of the time, they're for the joint construction and funding of transportation projects, but they can be for any kind of relationship that we have. Sometimes IGAs have a financial component, meaning money changes hands, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just an agreement to work together on something. But you can see other kinds of governmental services. Transit police services is a really good example. We do via IGA, other regulatory programs. We have an IGA with the city of Portland on the clean air construction program, for example. Those kinds of things. Money does change hands most of the time in those kinds of relationships, and those are exempt from Oregon procurement law. Next slide, please. This is where we're getting to what really the meat of the additions to the TCRB rules are, and we'll go through all of these. The first one of these is special procurements, and in conversation lately, I think it's helpful to think about special procurements as innovative procurements. These are procurements that we intend to solicit as competitive solicitations, but they don't follow any standard particular process. We have standard processes for a request for proposal, an invitation to bid, several other standard processes that we use that are defined both in the TCRB rules, in law, and in our own manuals. But occasionally somebody says, I have an interesting idea about how I want to solicit something, I want to invite competition. There's a request for applications process that we use for a very specific set of services. All those things we consider special procurements, and I think it's best to think about those as innovative procurements. The TCRB rules and what we've laid out here delegates to the general manager to approve a special procurement, an innovative procurement method for contracts up to $250,000, and it reserves the right to approve that method over $250,000 to you, to the TCRB. So that is a place where you are delegating to the general manager the ability to use a non-standard innovative procurement method up to $250,000 total contract value. Brand name or equal is a common exemption. It basically means that the procurement law does not allow us to solicit a brand name specifically, but it does allow us to solicit a brand name or equal product. And we talk about this all the time. The most common example in the world is Kleenex. A lot of times we might say, we need Kleenex. We don't really mean we need Kleenex. We mean we need facial tissue you can blow your nose with. We do that, and that is a brand name or equal kind of concept. That's an exemption here. Advertising is another good example, a little bit like real estate purchases. If we want to advertise in the newspaper, there's nowhere to go but the newspaper. If you want to advertise on a social media channel, there's nowhere to go but that social media channel. So we exempt that from competitive procurement. Next slide, please. Reverse auctions, again, there was a little bit of a question about this in the F&A committee, and I appreciated Director Kim. TriMet has done this, I think, exactly once. and it wasn't particularly successful, and just to be totally direct. I think we learned a lot from that. Oregon Department of Administrative Services is promoting the concept of reverse auctions. They did a pilot project with this and found some successful results. I think there's certain kinds of things where reverse auction is a pretty good idea. You can see that that pilot project did result in some cost savings. The way that a reverse auction works in general is that we invite a group of competitors in a purchasing process to say, I can offer you the lowest price, and somebody says, I can do a little better, and somebody else says, I can do a little better, and somebody says, I can do a little better. So you see the marketplace bidding itself down to its lowest price. Can you go to the next slide for me too? There are pros and cons to this, right? The pros obviously are that you get great competition and there's discovery of the lowest possible price. You often invite other vendors in because you're curious about the process. It does require additional time, and it works best with simple kinds of solicitations. We haven't done one of these in quite some time. I've told staff and others who do purchasing that if there's a good candidate for a reverse auction, we're all ears. We think it is a good way to discover price on certain kinds of ideas. There was a note from the Oregon pilot that technical facilitation from a third party was helpful. So we would need to think through that. But again, this is something we haven't done. What's in the TCRB rules is that you, as a board, as a TCRB, are granting staff the authority to work through that kind of procurement if we think it's advantageous. Next slide, please. There's a number of other common classes of exemptions here. Rating agencies, again, same thing. If you need a rating agency from S&P, you have to go to S&P. Periodicals and copyrighted materials, same exact idea. Direct purchase from original manufacturer is something we use all the time, right? What happens often is that an original manufacturer makes some kind of part. They also have resellers of that same part. We allow, in all cases, the purchase directly from the original manufacturer rather than offering a competitive solicitation that includes the original manufacturer and all of the resellers, right? For the simple reason that it's good for us to work with the original manufacturer for a lot of operational reasons, and usually, in almost all cases, we get the best price because the original manufacturer prevents the resellers from selling at a lower price than they do. Warranty services. This is something that has arisen actually with engineering construction. We needed a way to be able to contract with a vendor that installs something and then requires its own maintenance contract for a period of time. Landscaping is a really good and easy example. When somebody installs landscaping for us on a project, they say, we'll install the landscaping and we will warranty it, but we have to do the maintenance of that landscaping for the first 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. So this is a case where we can't publicly solicit that because we want to maintain the warranty and they need to water and maintain those plants. Same thing, memberships and professional associations, there's only one place to go for those. Artist contracts, there is a mention of artist contracts in the previous rules. I think many of you who have observed TriMet in this, we have specific methods of requesting artistic submissions and then selecting those, so they follow their very own track. That's an innovative procurement method, non-standard, but well understood by the community of artists we work with. Next slide, please. We've really done a lot in this, and this is really in response to the board's concerns about sole source. We have clarified sole source restrictions. What Oregon's law says is that you can only authorize a sole source when there's only one vendor who provides that good or service. Zach and I, on a fairly regular basis, are engaged in conversations with people, and we're always asking the question, is there anybody else who can do this service? I would say we'd probably deny a lot more sole source requests than we authorize, but we authorized one just this week, interestingly enough. And we got that request and somebody said, hey, I can't find anybody else to do this work. And Zach and I were, I think, probably skeptical. And we did our own research and due diligence and went, well, no, I guess there is really nobody else who can do this work. It was a new vehicle platform with a sort of custom upfitting, and we said there's really just at this time and point in time only one company that appears to be doing this work, and we did our own due diligence on that. There is a couple new things in the TCRB rules that will be new to TriMet. These are things we're not already doing, but we see them as best practices. One, we will publicly notice anytime we issue a sole source contract. Okay, we will publish on our own procurement website that we intend to issue a sole source award to a firm. That allows anybody out in the environment who monitors our solicitations to say, hey, I don't think that should be a sole source. I want to bid on that, right? That's great, because that allows us to say there's not just one potential vendor, there's more. And we allow the community of vendors to put their hand up and say, I want to bid on that. It also limits sole source contracts to 2 years. And there's a very specific reason for that, and it's really that the business industry changes. So for example, the sole source that Zach and I authorized this week for sort of a custom vehicle upfitting, I think that that's probably a very legitimate sole source today. I can't find another firm that appears to be doing that kind of work. I think in 2 years, somebody else is probably going to be doing it, right? There is a competitive environment that will arise as a result of good ideas and people wanting to work with those firms. There just isn't today, right? So we limit sole source contracts to 2 years. We also clarify that sole source contracts must not be used to avoid competition. The point of public procurement is that we invite competition, we discover best value, and we discover price. Sole sourcing should not ever be an end around competition. Next slide, please. I suppose I've already said all these things. And again, same thing here, new transparency requirements. So we will publicly notice all non-competitive awards over $250,000, and we will allow for public protest. So everything that you just saw in that long list of things that we will do outside of a standard process, if the solicitation is non-competitive, we will publicly notice those, and we will allow for public protest. That really gives everybody in the environment an opportunity to put their hand up and say, I want to bid on this work. And we would, in those cases, probably have good reason to pull back on that non-competitive award and reshape it to allow the kind of competition that the market wants. Same thing on sole source awards, just like I said. Those will be publicly noticed and eligible for public protest for all awards over $25,000. So we take very seriously our requirement to invite competition and to allow the marketplace to bid. Next slide, please. I think that that's it. I'm happy to take questions. It's a lot. Thank you for your patience. I hope you had an opportunity to look at it before we got here today.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions, comments from board members? Okay, we have Director Frisbee.
First of all, thank you for the presentation, and in particular, thank you to whatever wonderful human created the red line version, and then the outline with the red and the green and the blue colors. That like soothed my brain in a way that I cannot say thank you enough when I was going through this, so thank you. One thing that came through as I was looking at this, and I will fully confess that I am halfway through Ezra Klein's Abundance book, and so that's like how my brain is working right now, so I apologize. But what I see in here, other than I think the point that a lot of this is just cleaning up and streamlining and simplifying, but is also this deep tension between how do we always, support competition. I think TriMet has done an excellent job of investing in smaller companies and potential contractors to create more competition when we look 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and I really appreciate that. And how do we ensure that the public is getting the best price for their work? And how do we also ensure that our procurement processes enable our work to move forward as quickly as possible, which I think is always a challenge, having worked in public sector agencies. And so this is a little bit of a philosophical question for both of you. How do you feel like that this strikes the balance? And I guess the thing that jumped out to me is I was thinking about the public protest piece, which I was like, this is very valuable, and it's both information gathering and is an important transparency moment. And does this, I don't have a feeling as to whether or not it represents a huge amount of staff time that now has to go to a new space that might further slow down. I think we heard this morning, we really want to be moving faster on a lot of our capital projects. Does this potentially present a risk in that space? And so I guess I'm asking a little bit for how you think about that balance and how you feel like this work captures that.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think there's anything about the rules that will slow down us advancing on capital projects or the solicitations that support them. There's really nothing here that will change. It won't change really how we do CMGC contracting. It won't change how we do a standard bid. It doesn't change at all how we work through a standard RFP for that matter. Some of the public noticing and the opportunity to protest is corrective in a way, right, to us choosing a non-standard process that might eliminate a competitor who wants to be in the game, right? There's sometimes, I think it's common to want to think about a sole source when time is limited, right? That's just the reality. If something needs to happen sooner, you start thinking about sole sourcing. It's not the intention of the rules, but it is certainly a valuable byproduct, which is that the rules that we're going to agree on here today, I hope, will slow down the sole sourcing process. It won't be a method that's faster, right? It will be a method that still takes deliberation, that still takes public engagement, right? So nothing changes about how we do any of those solicitations that support our primary work and the primary ways that we solicit things. But you're right, it will slow us down just a little bit on procurement methods that are non-standard, that are not competitive.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Frisbee, and thank you, Jeff, for the clarity on that. Other questions, comments from the board? Okay. Oh, okay.
Just a
Director
quick
Kellogg?
comment. Your presentation was outstanding. Thank you for providing the examples, really fleshed out some of this more. I want to congratulate not only you, but the whole team involved with this, Greg and Shelley, from the technical to the philosophical. You know, we are up here as the stewards of the public's money, and so having these processes in place, yet still pursuing innovation, really an outstanding job across the board. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Kellogg. Just a quick question, something that just prompted with Director Kellogg's comment. How do we measure up with other transit agencies in our, I mean, I'm sure you looked at their board rules. I mean, how do we compare? Are we coming up to speed to be similar? Are we more transparent with our rules?
I'm going to answer briefly, and then I'm going to pitch it to Zach. I think we are coming up to speed. Most of the things that we identify here in the TCRB's rules of view, we have pulled the concept of from other jurisdictions. For example, the city of Portland is already doing many of things, already noticing sole source authorizations. I would say that TriMet at this particular moment a little more hews to traditional procurement, and we see other governments around us exercising a little more of their flexibility under the law. We're moving that direction. I don't think we're catching up necessarily. I think that we have we're gonna allow ourselves the potential to think in a little bit different ways. And the governments around us are already doing that.
Okay,
Zach, you've done a little
kind of
research.
at baby steps then.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't add much more than what Jeff said, but a lot of the exemptions you see in there for the special exemption or special procurements are fairly standard across at least local agencies and what we do in Oregon. I think one of the other things that gives us a little bit, not on, sorry, a little bit more flexibility is that a lot of agencies combine sort of the TCRB rules, which are sort of the overall governing rules for what types of solicitations we can do, with our actual procurement, with their actual contracting rules, which is how they go about doing the everyday, day-to-day contracting. And we sort of separate those out. So we don't, every time we want to make a change to say, you know, how we do RFPs and things like that, we don't have to come to you and wait for a monthly bid. So it gives us a bit more flexibility on that end than some other agencies in the area.
And I would only say that the contracting rules, which I happen to have in my hand, are 47 pages. So if you don't want that to come to you, this is part of the reason we carve off the TCRB piece.
Thank you, greatly appreciate that. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, I move to a vote. All in favor, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Okay. At this point, I will adjourn the TCRB and return to our regular business meeting. That concludes our formal business for today. Our regular business meeting will, next regular business meeting will be May 28th, here in our boardroom. At this time, the board's business meeting is adjourned. Okay. We'll take a short 15-minute break, and then we have a briefing from David Aluz and Bernadette Lee on the TV Highway Transit and Safety Project. Awesome. Okay. 15 minutes, everyone. Hey, we are returning. It's after our short break. Thank you to everyone returning. We'll be having a briefing from David and Bernadette on the TV Highways Transit and Safety Project. Please come forward. And all three of you? Yes. We need one more. Okay. And introduce yourselves. You know who we are, and proceed when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here today. I am Jamie Snook, and I'm the Director of Major Projects, and I'd like to introduce my team. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bernadette Lee. I am Associate Project Manager on the TV Highway Project.
It's not afternoon yet. Good morning. Good morning. Almost lunchtime. I'm David Alwas, Capital Planning Manager. Nice to be here.
So we are here today to talk about TV Highway Transit and Safety Project, and we're giving you a briefing on the locally preferred alternative, the LPA. And we will be coming back next month for endorsement of the LPA. But this is a chance for us to give you a briefing on the project, and we're really excited to be here to inform you all about the work that we've been doing. We are also working with our partners to endorse the LPA, and that LPA process will come to conclusion this summer when Metro Council adopts the LPA. And then we will be amending the regional transportation plan in the fall to include the new locally preferred alternative in the RTP. We are working with our partners on IGAs to help us fund the next phase of the project. And those IGAs will be finalized by the end of June in preparation of submitting for entry into project development under the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration Capital Investment Grant Program for small starts. So our goal is we're going to go through this LPA endorsement process. We're working on the IGAs to fund project development, and we'll enter into project development sometime mid to late summer. And that will really kick off the federal process to get the project going. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave and Bernadette to tell you more about the project.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's jump to the next slide here. So we're here today to share a project briefing ahead of bringing the locally preferred alternative, or LPA, to the board, as Jamie mentioned. I'll provide a quick project overview. Bernadette Lee will discuss the public engagement to date, and I'll talk about the next steps for the project. As we move through the LPA approval process and funding agreements with all the local jurisdictions and into the project development phase, so there's some steps ahead here. So a quick project overview. I'm guessing everybody's familiar with the TV Highway Corridor, but just in case you're not, this is on the west side of our region. It's in Washington County. Links together quite a number of communities out there. The Line 57, it's about 16.2 miles long. Project is from Beaverton Transit Center to 19th and B Street in Forest Grove. Passes through the communities of Beaverton, Aloha, Hillsborough, Cornelius, Forest Grove, and other parts of unincorporated Washington County. ODOT owns the majority of the alignment, while Forest Grove owns right-of-way just west of 47. That's kind of at the far western end. Next slide. So why the Line 57? There's a number of reasons why we are looking at making improvements along the Line 57 route. A lot of people ride the Line 57. It's got over 6,000 daily boardings on average weekday. And it has one of the highest bounce back rates that we've seen since the pandemic, with about 88% of the ridership when compared to before and after the pandemic. Travel times are not very competitive with other modes of transportation. Taking the bus can take up to twice as long as it would to drive the route. The rider experience has a lot of room to improve. About 54% of existing stops along the corridor do not have shelters or weather protection. 34% do not have seating, and 41% do not have any sort of lighting. The image on the slide is in the segment of the corridor adjacent to the Union Pacific Railroad line, which is another challenge, of course, and conveys just how much room there is for improvement. So you see there that gentleman standing with no curb, maybe even a gravel stop. There's a few really abominable stops in that particular section we're hoping to resolve Next slide. So what have we achieved during the planning phase? We've been at this for about 2.5 years. So our partners over the last few years have been helping us to move this project along. We've been working with ODOT, Metro, Washington County, Forest Grove, Cornelius, Hillsborough, and Beaverton, as well as a number of community organizations through an equitable development strategy to advance the project to get to where we are today. The project has also convened a technical working group, policy group, and a steering committee to advise the project's development. In phase 1 of our work, we advanced design to 5%, and we developed a project that resulted in a $550 million project estimate. We knew that this was not going to work, so we explored phasing options and ultimately worked with our steering committee to identify a quarter-long project, but with some lower aspirations. We did end up with a more feasible $300 million project that is still eligible for federal funding, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what is included there. So, throughout this project, we've had several phases of community outreach in which we focused on project awareness, engaging with the TV Highway Equity Coalition, and seeking feedback on draft station locations. Bernadette is going to share a little bit more information about the engagement a little bit later in this presentation. So the latest milestone was the steering committee's February vote to recommend a locally preferred alternative that identifies the preferred mode, alignment, and general station locations, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in the presentation as well. Next slide. So some of the benefits. So Line 57 currently has 15-minute service most of the day, so that's 4 buses an hour. The FX project would commit to 12-minute service most of the day, so this would mean a nice 20% improvement with 5 buses an hour. Next slide. The project also brings things which will help to improve the rider experience in the corridor. Stations will have shelters, lighting, seating, and real-time arrival information at each station location. Real-time arrival information are those signs that you see that tell you when the next bus is coming. So riders will also experience a faster, more reliable trip. Improvements that will help speed up the bus include transit signal priority at most of the signals along the route, all-door boarding through 3 wide doors on a 60-foot articulated bus, and faster fare collection with tap readers at all doors. Similar features that we have on the Division FX2. The project will be optimizing the stop locations along the route as well as and I'll show you a map a little bit later that comes with the LPA that shows where the stop locations are. We'll also be allowing quicker bus movements through intersections with some queue jumps in a few places where there's space to do so. This is another places where we had to kind of dial back some of our expectations in terms of the cost on this project, but we're trying to take advantage of those opportunities that are out there today. The stops will also provide access for people with using mobility devices, and finally, the route will be served by zero-emission buses. Next slide, please. So a number of the project benefits speak to safety and accessibility as well. The project is committed to providing enhanced crossings or traffic signals at all station pairs. This, of course, has safety benefits for non-transit riders as well. The image on the slide here shows a median island crossing with a rapid flashing beacon at a similar stop on the FX2 line in Division. The elimination of partial pullout stops is also a goal of the project. Partial pullout stops are where the bus pulls into and blocks a bike lane, but is still blocking about half of that travel lane. It creates this ambiguous situation where cars aren't quite sure whether they can pass or not. And we've seen a pattern of rear end and sideswipe accidents in those locations, particularly on TV Highway. So something that this project is doing is working to get rid of those types of stops. ODOT's been a great partner on this. We've gone through a pretty detailed process where we've identified what stops really need to be out of lane. There's a few really critical kind of crash locations they're pretty concerned about, and what stops we can keep in lane where the speeds are a little bit more kind of amenable to a in-lane stop, and where we're not seeing that sort of crash history. So they've been a great partner on this, and I think we have a pretty strong strategy going forward on that particular topic. So as you saw on the previous slide, a good number of stops don't have waiting areas for passengers. And a lot of them aren't even protected by curbs. So another commitment is that this project is setting the goal of adding curbs at all stations throughout the corridor to help protect waiting riders. You wouldn't think that would be a big challenge, but it is on TV Highway. So it's something that we want to take on and solve. Next slide. So this project's gone through some pretty extensive cost cutting, as I mentioned before, to get to a feasible design that still achieves the needed ridership and safety benefits, while leveraging, of course, the federal funding opportunity. Early project designs as part of the failed T-2020 bond. My heart still hurts over that. Yeah. This project was actually in that bond, and it came in at $880 million back in 2019. And we know that there were some things missing from that project. This corridor has a great deal of need. And this project is going to do a lot, but it can't do everything that this corridor needs. As I mentioned, our first round of design, we got down to a $550 million project. We had some aspirations about including some chicanes leading in and out of the stations in collaboration with ODOT, trying to get the speeds down so that we could actually set a lower speed and improve safety kind of more broadly across the corridor. That really proved not feasible in terms of the level of funding that we're able to get. And so that and a number of other things we've stepped back from. We do have a $300 million project which we think accomplishes a lot. And it's going to accomplish a lot of things for transit as well as for the safety of the corridor. We've heard very clearly from our steering committee that safety is a really high priority. And that's something that we're committed to helping solve out there. We really feel like that's also going to boost ridership greatly just because we're going to create an environment where people feel like they can actually safely wait for the bus and access the transit. So, so project improvements, they include 41 station pairs, signalized and enhanced crossings at each station pair, 15 new vehicles. We have some budget for upgrade to Merlot Garage to accommodate the new fleet, and then 59 signals would be upgraded with TSP. Operations and maintenance costs are currently under development, and we'll take in consideration the increase from 15 to 12-minute headways, as well as the FX shelters at all stops and the use of 60-foot articulated battery electric buses. We hope to bring that back to you the next time we visit with you. Next slide.
Okay, this is my part. So, thank you. As Dave mentioned, the project team went out into the community at 3 points during this initial phase of the project. And in the beginning, members visited 17 organizations along the corridor to bring awareness that we were exploring transit enhancements along TV Highway. We visited bike advisory committees, neighborhood associations, business groups, a whole variety of organizations. And many attendees expressed interest in the types of improvements that may come to the corridor. No. Oh, we also went and visited the went to meetings that were being held through the TV Highway Equitable Development Strategy. And this past fall, we did a community-wide outreach effort to gain input about the station locations. So the project posted an online survey as well as a project story map. And the story map is an interactive online web page that folks could scroll through and see different maps and different information about the project. It was both tools were available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, and we received over 1,000 responses to the online survey. Next slide, please. So during the month that the survey was up, the team worked really hard to get information out to the community that this outreach opportunity was available. We attended 6 in-person events during this month, including El Grito in Hillsborough, Aloha, Hillsborough, Cornelius, and Beaverton farmers markets, as well as the corn roast in Forest Grove. We heard that the corn roast was a really important community event from our partners in Forest Grove, so that was the event that we attended, and it was actually really well. Lots of community members were there, and we got some great feedback. During these events, we spoke to around 320 community members. We also attended the Voyage of Visionaries 2024 Policymaker Ride in Beaverton, which was a guided bike ride that was held and provided a short presentation about the project, handed out flyers, and encouraged folks to get online and fill out the survey. We were able to speak to 75 leaders at that event. We also posted bilingual signage at all Line 57 stops, some even twice when we heard that they had fallen down. And we thank our staff at TriMet for helping us get those up. And we handed out flyers also to all of the Vienna Star properties, Washington County housing properties, as well as libraries, community centers, and community identified retail, as well as additional places along the corridor. Information was also shared through email lists, e-newsletters, as well as social media, both at TriMet and Metro, as well as reshared by our jurisdictional partners. So when we looked at the data, we saw that across all platforms, about 16,750 impressions were made on social media. So that's how many times the post showed on someone's screen. So that was really great coverage as well. We also reached out to community organizations during this time to kind of come back and offer an update presentation. So we were able to visit with 5 community groups during that month as well and spoke to about 70 people. And then finally, the project heard pretty close to the outreach window and interest from our steering committee about if we could have people on board the buses, letting people know about the survey. And TriMet was able to make that happen. So we had onboard surveyors who rode the Line 57 for 10 days during the survey window. They were there for 12 6-hour shifts, and those shifts were spread out throughout the week and throughout the service day. Each shift had a bilingual survey team, and while on board, the surveyors had tablets. They were able to speak to people and step them through the survey. We also had little info cards so that if someone didn't have time to do the survey with us at that moment, they could go back and do it on their own time. So I was able to check in with the survey team during this time, and they heard from a lot of folks that they had already seen the signs at the bus stop and they had already filled out the survey. But of the folks that hadn't, they were really receptive and willing to fill out the survey with the surveyors, or they took the info card. We also noticed in our survey an uptick in responses during that last 10 days. So next slide, please. So we received, as I mentioned before, we received over 1,000 surveys during that month. And I wanted to share a little bit about the demographic information of who we heard from. So we saw about 58% of the respondents were frequent or regular riders. So these were folks that were using that line regularly. We also reached demographic groups that are often underrepresented in online surveys. So 17% of respondents were under the age of 25. So we had quite a good representation from youth. 20% of respondents had an income under 50,000. We also had 35% of respondents identified as Hispanic or Latino, and 32% of respondents who said that they primarily speak Spanish at home. We also saw that 15% of respondents chose to use the Spanish version of the survey. And this really demonstrated to us the importance of having a separate survey available in the language of their choice. So in the survey, folks were asked to score how well the proposed station locations met their needs, from a score of 1 being not well at all and 5 being really well. And we saw, we also split the corridor into 5 sections because it was really long. We didn't want to burden people with having to respond to the whole corridor. So we broke it into the 5 sections, and they were able to respond to as many sections as they wanted to. So we saw all segments average between 4 and 4.2 out of 5, and this tells us that they were generally supportive of the proposed locations. We received minimal open-ended comments that were specific to stations as well. The open-ended section of the survey, we also heard a lot of comments from people just generally supportive of this project and excited that we were looking into it. So with that, I will pass it back to Dave.
All right, thanks, Bernadette. Okay, so next slide, please. So this is our recommended LPA map. It shows the station locations that are proposed to move forward with. I will say that there are a few station locations that are still in debate. I think you'll probably recall that Division Transit had some movement of its stations also during the project development phase, and this will be no different. So we've got some refinement to do in Cornelius in particular. It's a good problem. They're really interested in having stations. Unlike other places, sometimes they're like, don't put a station in front of my business. Everybody wants a station in Cornelius. So this is a good problem. So we're just working out where the best places are for stations in Cornelius. So the mode, as the LPA requires, is our frequent express bus rapid transit. The general station locations, as I mentioned, are shown on this map. They're a little over third-mile average spacing. There's, I should say, median spacing. There's actually a few places out there where there's, big wetlands and things like that that really kind of increase the average. So we're really looking more of a median spacing. There's 41 station pairs plus stations at Beaverton Transit Center, Hillsborough Transit Center, as well as the terminus at Forest Grove. Next slide. So our funding strategy looks like this, pretty high level. So this is what the steering committee actually approved in February. Shows how we plan to come up with funding for a $300 million project. We're expecting to be able to get a 50% match from FTA's Small Starts Grant Program, which is a competitive nationwide program. Our region's been historically very successful in landing these grants, including the Division Transit Project and the Better Red Project, both during the former Trump administration. To be eligible for this federal funds, we need to identify local match. TriMet and all jurisdictions up and down TV Highway are planning to come together for much of that local match with about $100 million across all the partners. The project's also requesting $50 million in state money to close the gap and help to make this project a reality. Next slide, please. So we got a few next steps here. Let's jump to the next slide. So now the steering committee has recommended the locally preferred alternative. Project staff at Metro and TriMet will be working with local jurisdiction staff on 2 key processes. Jamie mentioned these in the beginning. I'll mention them again here. So seeking the locally preferred alternative LPA approval, as well as commitment for project development funds. We'll be taking the LPA to each jurisdiction's council or board. And once all of the cities and county have approved, the LPA will go to the TriMet board, hopefully next month. And then it'll go to JPACT and finally to the Metro Council for approval. I think we got our first approval last night at the Washington County Board. So, yay. Metro and TriMet staff are also working on with local partners as part of the FY26 budget discussions to establish commitments for funding for project development. This process involves developing intergovernmental agreements, or IGAs, with TriMet, which will document shared expectations for funding and assumptions for working together through the next phase of the project. And that next phase takes us all the way up to construction documentation. So all project development funds need to be committed before TriMet can apply to enter project development. If all goes well with our local funding commitments and state contribution, we'll be ready to apply for project development at the end of July. So actually, we're going to be applying, I believe, at the end of June. Yeah. If accepted, work could potentially begin as early as mid-August on the next phase of the work. Next slide. Questions?
Just jump in there. Go ahead.
Curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, curious. Thank you so much. Exciting stuff. District 1, so especially exciting. If the, let's say the 50 million for the state portion were to decrease for whatever reason, would the federal startup that funding also be decreased in a mirroring, matching way?
We would need to try and come up with some sort of match, but I'm going to let Jamie talk to this a little bit.
So the federal match is capped at just under $150 million, so we will keep the project at that level.
Yeah.
The $300 million project really is the base project, and so we can't really reduce scope out of that project. So we're really going to be reaching for that 150 from the federal partners.
Yeah.
And then the local match, if we are not able to receive the federal funding from the state, we're going to have to bring the group back together and talk about another funding plan. All partners are really at their maximum of what they can contribute, and so we will be looking at, are there other federal grants that we could be applying for? Are there other partners that can help contribute? But everybody's been like, this is what we can contribute, and that's where we are. So if we don't get the money from the state, there will be lots of conversations about how do we make that up and what other federal program or federal grants are out there for us to take advantage of.
Thank you.
Jamie, can we just use this moment to emphasize for the state that their $50 million contribution is essentially mandatory if we are to embark on the longest the longest free FX project in the state that serves one of the most transit-dependent and lowest income and diverse populations. And so, to our state partners, if you are not able to be a partner, this project looks very different, / might not look at all.
Those are really great comments.
I'll say it since I think you have to be a little more diplomatic.
And just to let you know, I just had that conversation last week with Senator Lieber and how important the $50 million to the project. So we are talking to them at the state capitol.
Do you have any more questions, Director Kim?
No, thank you.
Okay, can well, first of all, I will offer up for him that if you need adorable photos, Director Kim has very cute pictures of his daughters waiting for the line 57. I don't know how he feels about using his
TV
family.
highway, unsheltered, classic example. We need this project, yes.
So there's but I just want to say thank you for this work. This, what we see today looks simplified and straightforward, and we know that it is anything but. Thank you for revisiting the trauma of the 2020 measure. But I was thinking that Jamie and maybe Tara O'Brien, is she in here? Yeah, I think we were all on a bus together going up and down TV Highway where we intentionally made the choice not to pull over and let the bus full of community leaders and elected officials out on the side of the road because we were so concerned about someone getting hit by a car. And I just think that emphasizes the terror and what we are asking folks riding the bus to do on a daily basis that it turns out we're not willing to ask our elected officials to do. So this project is very needed. I also think it is worth highlighting, and Jamie, you mentioned this, Bernadette, I think you mentioned this project is addressing a lot of needs, and they are very important. And I think it is a hard moment as we think about TriMet's role when we build these projects, because if our community is asking for transit and these other things, the question is how do we come together with our partners to help deliver these other things? We cannot always be responsible for solving the entirety of a roadway's problems. If we did that, we would build one project every 25 years. And so I want to kudos to this leadership team, the work that you have done in navigating a way through this. And I think I just put it out there that I think this is a constantly flexing thing where we figure out how do we meet community needs, but how are other partners stepping up to be part of that conversation? Because we have a lot of places with a lot of different needs. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Awesome comments. Others? No? Oh, okay, yes, she did. Just final words of awesome on the working with the community and getting the feedback from the surveys. You did some innovative things of, I call them boots on the ground and getting on TriMet. Thanks to TriMet for meeting you where the people are as opposed to us expecting them to take out their phones and find us. You found them, and the results are awesome. Thank you for that extra step and being creative, and then pushing the envelope to get the data, because it makes your numbers worth the reality. I mean, I love research myself, so thank you for being creative on that. Any other? Okay. Thank you for your full work as a team. You will be back, and we'll keep the light on for you, as they say. Okay. Yes. Yes. Street takeover. Our buses are bigger. General Manager, some words.
No, I just want to tell the team, thank you, and just keep going with the work that we're doing here. You're making some really good progress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
President, I need one more.
General Manager.
Before everybody leaves, if I can have all of the executive administrative assistants stand up.
Just everybody in the room.
I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that today is Administrative Professionals Day. And one of the things that we want to do is just let everybody know that we celebrate our professionals on the Wednesday of the last week in April. So today is that day. Really, on the national level, it's also that day that's dedicated to recognizing and appreciating the critical contribution that our administrative staffs actually play to all of us on the executive team, our director team, our management team. And we have just great experience, a vast amount of skills and experience that's there. Our folks are always smoothing and making sure that we function the way that we should. Also, just want to acknowledge their hard work, the hard work that you do, that you put in, all of you, your dedication and valued support to provide working behind the scenes. I always call it, if you think about the Wizard of Oz, you got someone behind the curtain that's making sure everything works. So we really appreciate that, and want to just say that from all of us, we really appreciate all of you and what you do. So thank you so much on that.
Everyone, the tab is on, General Manager, so thank you.
Oh, it's always on.